Making headlines tonight, the tourism minister reacts to the latest U.S. COVID-19 travel advisory. Barbados bestows Kenya's president with a national honor. Prime Minister Mottley reiterates her call for changes to the criteria to qualify for financing. And coming up in sports, Holders Sunrisers prevents RCB from a possible top 2 place.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. Reaction tonight to America's recent Level 4 travel advisory against Barbados as a result of the current COVID-19 situation. It's coming from Tourism Minister Senator Lisa Cummins. Speaking in the Senate today during debate on the Constitution Amendment Bill, Senator Cummins said the United States is a sovereign nation and has the right to make decisions in its interest. However, she made it clear that looking for external validation for what would affect local tourism is not where the country is, and that the island's destiny and the actions its people take will determine what happens to them. Senator Cummins pointed to what would stop tourists from coming to Barbados.
The United States travel advisory is not going to stop travelers from coming to Barbados. Barbados going to republicanism is not going to stop travelers from coming to Barbados. The appointment of a president is not going to stop travelers from coming to Barbados. What is going to stop travelers from coming to Barbados is when they call a hotel or a villa to make a reservation and they are vaccinated, they're tested, and they're quarantined, and they're being told that they're being attended to by workers who are neither. That is a decision made by our hands.
Barbados lost 2 more elderly persons to COVID-19. A 91-year-old woman died late last night while in secondary isolation at the Harrison Point Isolation Facility. She spent 7 days there before passing away. She had pre-existing medical conditions and was unvaccinated. The second death was that of a 75-year-old man who lost his battle with the virus this morning. He was in isolation for 10 days at the Blackman and Gollop Isolation Center. He also had pre-existing medical conditions and was unvaccinated. The number of deaths from COVID-19 now stand at 86. Barbados and the Republic of Kenya continue to forge bonds as visiting President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, was today presented with a national honor for his commitment to global trade and efforts to strengthen cooperation and friendship between the nations. More in this story by Aaliyah Briggs.
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta was today conferred a national honor for his outstanding global leadership and efforts to strengthen bonds of cooperation and friendship between the Republic of Kenya and Barbados. The Order of Freedom of Barbados was presented by Governor General Dame Sandra Mason. While expressing gratitude for the great honor, President Kenyatta says this moment indicates a bright future for relations between Africa, Barbados, and the Caribbean diaspora.
This is not just an honor for me as an individual, but really a great sign of the growing collaboration between Kenya and Barbados and the work that myself and my sister Mia Mottley have done to strengthen the ties between Africa and the CARICOM region.
While reflecting on the devastating global impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, President Kenyatta says the African and Caribbean community must unite to address global challenges. The national honor was bestowed in the presence of Prime Minister Mia Mottley, who spoke to efforts to explore linkages in the areas of trade, finance, and tourism.
Working together in the area of the financial services, the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya is here. We have local companies and credit unions that are already in discussions with the Kenya Commercial Bank about various aspects of services. Kenya, as you know, is the leader in the world on the M-Pesa, which is the digital currency. We also have persons who are talking together about joint marketing for tourism between people who tend to go to Kenya for safari are the same people who come to Barbados at the higher end for beaches and vacations. So we believe that there's an opportunity for joint marketing of our 2 destinations.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is the first son of the founding president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta. Aaliyah Briggs, CBC News.
The focus today at the UNCTAD conference was on debt and youth. We go now live to Sharika Griffith, who's been following the developments. Good evening, Sharika.
Well, good evening to you, Sheen. Something that should be of interest as we continue the battle against COVID-19. Spain has voiced its commitment to assisting with the global vaccination efforts. The reassurance from the country's first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economic Affairs and Digital Transformation, Nadia Calvino Santamaria. According to her, around 80% of the population in her country is vaccinated, and donations have already been made to Latin American countries.
We are ready to support global initiatives. As you know, we have a particular commitment to donate vaccines to other countries in Latin America. We have already transferred 9 million vaccines to the Latin American world, and we wish to continue along these lines with our vaccine program so that we can give an effective vaccine response. The same is true with financial instruments.
Now, President of UNCTAD 15, Prime Minister Mia Mottley, has reiterated her call for changes to the judging criteria that allow small countries like Barbados to qualify for financing. Currently, international lending agencies use the debt-to-GDP ratio as the measuring stick, but Prime Minister Mottley says this can no longer be the case. Speaking to an UNCTAD 15 roundtable focused on scaling up financing for development, Ms. Mottley said going forward, developing countries, and especially those that invest heavily for climate crisis adaptation, need to be given adequate fiscal space to operate. And she warned the world financial system could break down if changes are not made to accommodate small island developing states.
We may well want to look at green debt and COVID debt as discussed again, with super long maturities, low interest rates, almost Ida-like terms, if we are going to ensure that we can, one, meet our commitments to be able to reduce carbon, recognizing that in many instances green debt is going to have to be incurred, but equally remove from us the restriction and constraint that will be placed on us because of the increased debt that we have as a result of the COVID pandemic.
The Prime Minister has also taken to task those who constantly shift the goalposts on international taxation matters. She says an internationally agreed and impartially applied rules-based system is needed to deal with the publication of lists that restrict trade and finance.
Lists on uncooperative jurisdictions and on anti-money laundering and tax and what next. Lists designed to name and shame, black lists, white lists, grey lists, derived arbitrarily, where judges are jurors and where the listers never list themselves. These are the things that we deal with every day. It means that money laundering and tax avoidance centers, however, are now protected in wealthy countries that produce the lists but are never listed.
Meanwhile, Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, Marcia Cadell, believes the regulation of online marketplaces and a single roaming rate for mobile communication must be at the top of the list when addressing the vulnerabilities of small island developing states. She stressed this view in her opening remarks of UNCTAD 15's roundtable on regional integration.
We know that the future of trade, especially for us in the region with high logistics costs, is going to be in online trading, largely. But if you're not selling on the major marketplaces, then you're really not selling at all. And the question is, along with the single roaming rate that we've talked about for this CARICOM region to allow people to do business more cheaply, how do we also provide the regulation for these major marketplaces and these major technology companies that will allow Caribbean people to integrate into those markets and to have access to those markets? We are seeing a great privatization of trade infrastructure online, but there's no regulatory framework for that and for how we get Caribbean people to be a part of that.
Minister Cadell says fast ferries and port investments to move nutritious produce are also vital.
We talk a lot about moving people, but moving produce, moving things, moving goods may be the key thing for this region in developing a framework around nutrition security that allows us to promote better health without falling foul of the existing trade rules. Now, these kinds of transportation, boats, only make sense if they carry cargo, if they carry people, if they carry cars. It means that it's going to require regulations that make it easier at each port in the region to be able to do that.
And local youth have added their voices and visions for global trade and development. This afternoon, they handed the UNCTAD 15 Youth Declaration to UNCTAD Secretary General Rebecca Greenspan at the Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Center. Rianne Phillips tells us more.
The Youth Declaration document was compiled from the discussions between 600 young people from 72 different countries during last month's virtual youth forum. Organizer Leandre Knight speaks about its purpose.
This document serves as a culmination of hours of dialogue between hundreds of youth from around the world representing multiple countries and cultures. It contains the main points that we deem youth as important and for us to ensure a future prosperous for all young people.
Noting many issues were covered during last month's youth forum, lead organizer Roshana Trim is again stressing the importance of collaborations and partnerships.
In order for us to pull up and change the rhythm as the youth forum was themed, and in order for us to leave no one behind, it is important that everyone be involved, regardless of who you are or where you are from. It is no longer possible or acceptable for us to leave persons behind based on their gender, religion, their country of origin, where they are born, or who they are, because persons are entitled to thrive simply by virtue of being human and for no other reason.
And leaders, including Prime Minister Mia Mottley and UNCTAD Secretary General Rebecca Greenspan, have pledged to take the document seriously.
You will allow me to say how very proud, Secretary General, I am of these young people for their eloquence, but more importantly than even the eloquence, for their hard work in making this consultation with over 600 young people across 72 countries come off. So I know that you will treat it with the respect that they deserve, and I will certainly treat it with the respect that it deserves as well.
Believe me, we will take this very seriously. And great job done at bringing all those young people to give us their take of what they want from us from this UNCTAD 15 conference. So we really hope this will help us.
Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
So Shane, that's a look at the major stories coming out of UNCTAD 15 on this, the penultimate day of the conference. I'm sure there'll be plenty more as the curtain comes down tomorrow.
Thanks a lot, Sharika. And of course, CBC News, our news desk, will be following them. Coming up, a wish for digital access for all in Barbados. Prime Minister Mia Mottley has renewed her call for all groupings in society to have access to technological devices. In delivering the keynote address at the 51st Annual Conference of the International Institution of Communication, Ms. Mottley said individuals with disabilities must not be left out of the equation when addressing the digital divide.
Building out the architecture for digitalization is only half of the equation. Access to it through connectivity and devices completes the process of inclusion for equality. And let us not forget, in some countries, there is the basic issue of access to electricity. My friends, that inclusion must therefore also move beyond lip service and include substantial changes to all that we do to ensure that people with disabilities have full access equally to the digital space to flourish.
Ms. Mottley also said traditional media is under pressure and trust is under siege. She's called for a media makeover in order to tackle the challenges going into the future.
Is the future business as usual, or can this be a catalyst for the industry to reset? The answer is ABC for BCC. Adopt moral, strategic leadership as part of your governance model. A. B. Boost broadcast media's role in diversity, equity, and inclusion. C. Confront digital rights and freedoms as well as responsibilities. This is about behavior change communication, BCC, and creating a stronger media ecosystem.
Acting Leader of Government Business, Senator Kay McConney, has sought to allay the fears of some Barbadians about the move to Republican status. Senator McConney was speaking as she led off debate on the Constitution Amendment No. 2 bill in the Upper House. She says while many fear the proposal, it will not result in any massive disruptions.
Unless there is some major change, the senators that are part of this honorable house will remain senators as part of this honorable house. The judges, sir, at all levels will remain judges. The chairpersons of constitutionally established commissions and tribunals will remain. Sir, I shared all this to say that as much as people are anticipating a massive disruption in our government, that is not so.
Opposition Senator Caswell Franklin says moving to a republic is nothing to fear. In fact, Senator Franklin believes it's a step the country should have taken long ago. He, however, would prefer if the president was elected by citizens voting.
Because look how Parliament is configured now. We have 29 in the lower house, and in this place they have 12 government senators. There is nowhere on God's earth that the Prime Minister's choice can be defeated in this kind of configuration. That's why I think the people should have their say on it. But others, including my leader, thinks not, and I will have to go with the majority.
Deputy President of the Senate, Rudolph Greenidge, says November 30th will not become Republic Day. He was responding to critics about the decision to move to Republican status on Independence Day.
November 30th will always be Independence Day. That is something owned by the father of our independence. And this particular bill, sir, will not dilute. It will not dilute the contribution which the Right Honorable Errol Walton Barrow made to this country. Right, excellent. The Right Excellent, sir. If anything, sir, it will amplify it. It will amplify it. It is the same day. In other words, you have completed your journey.
45 years have passed since the Cubana Airlines tragedy, but the 73 lives lost in the bombing are still being remembered. The Cuban community and officials today gathered at the Cubana Commemorative Monument in Paynes Bay, just a few miles away from the site of the crash. Speaking during the commemorative ceremony, Ambassador to CARICOM David Comachon said he was inspired to share the stories of those who perished in his book, The Cubana Story.
Behind that figure of 73 people were real, living, breathing, dreaming, aspiring, loving human beings. And that is why I produced this book, because I want us all to read that story. I want us all to feel the human element embedded in that tragic event.
Cuban Ambassador to Barbados, Sergio Pastrana, commended Ambassador Comachon for his efforts to preserve the Cubana story for generations to come. He says while the memory of Cubana lives on, many are unaware of this tragedy and its impact on Caribbean civilization.
This heinous act of criminal terrorism is mainly remembered by this monument and similar places in Guyana and Venezuela, as well as in the memory of many Cubans, Barbadians, Guyanese, and Venezuelans. But there are generations now that have not heard of this event at all. It is startling to learn that those flying that day were mostly young people in the prime of their lives, and that they were murdered out of hate and animosity. This is why the book that Ambassador David Comachon has just edited for this 45th anniversary is such an important historic document to enlighten our youth to the history of aggression that continue against our Caribbean civilization.
The Business Report, brought to you with the compliments of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
Power outages in Barbados will soon be a thing of the past. Petroleum giant Rubis and HDF Energy have entered into a strategic partnership to set up a renewable energy baseload facility in Barbados. It would quadruple the existing power of the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited on a 24-hour basis and answering calls from consumers at peak periods. Press Relations Officer Aidan Rogers told the Business Report the facility would be located in St. Philip.
The project is really going to be a renewable energy baseload facility. And to be specific with that, this is a plant that would seek to mimic what the fossil fuel plants currently does. So there's not a question of intermittency here. So that project is right now breaking ground in French Guiana. And we're looking at developing a similar project here in St. Philip, in the location of the Harrow Plantation, which is near Bushy Park. So those are really the plans that are now going through the permitting process. They've been here on ground. This is HDF for at least the last 3 years, going through the necessarily engaging with the necessary stakeholders in government, the regulator, and pretty much pushing through the permitting process right now as we speak.
Rogers said the new system would offer large-scale lithium battery capacity when completed and would prevent spikes on high demand on a 24-hour basis.
So what this project actually would represent is a much larger scale of these types of investment, and the novel aspect of this project would be how the plant would actually be deployed. This plant would provide power on a 24-hour basis through the combination of overproducing power during the daytime with a large solar farm in excess of 50 plus megawatts, storing the excess power while supplying a steady stream during the daytime between the hours of 8 to 5, and then using the hydrogen battery packs to actually deploy electricity during the nighttime to the next morning.
Convenience and accessibility are the driving force behind automotive dealership Courtesy Garage joining in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Divisional Human Resources Manager Stephanie Catling Birmingham told CBC News that staff and residents of the surrounding areas were accommodated.
Ideally, we wanted to create an opportunity to make it very convenient for our employees should they choose to take the vaccine. And alternatively, we wanted to ensure that we could provide the opportunity to a wider catchment area because of the environment we are in. You know, we have buildings surrounding us, the pine, etc. And we thought it would be convenient for those persons to be able to come to Courtesy to receive the vaccine.
Carter's General Store has already hosted a vaccine clinic at the branch in Lower Estate, and store manager Alan Goodman said they would be opening their doors to another clinic tomorrow.
The mobile unit is coming this Thursday at Carter's in Wildy, so we're looking forward to have a good turnout there for people to just do some shopping, grab some lunch, and have a vaccine. You can't go wrong with that.
Okay, we head back on over to the sports studio now, and welcome back Damien Best. What do you have for us in the second half?
We can continue with this one, Shane. Two Barbadian athletes, Roland Wave and Betty Ann Murray, departed the island today for the Huntsman World Senior Games in Utah. Speaking to CBC Sports, Murray, who will be making her first appearance at the Games, says it's all an effort to qualify for the Senior Olympics, which will be held in Florida next year in May. Additionally, she said they only had 2 months to prepare.
We did 100s, 200s. We did 2 lappers, 1 lappers, 3 lappers, and 50s. We do that to prepare. I'll be doing the 1, the 2, and 50. For me, I really wanted to go because it's my first time. I never get the chance. So I say, okay, I don't mind what's going on now. I just take the chance and go.
Well, the trip to Utah was completely funded by the 2 athletes, and Wave, who is entered in the 100, 200 and 400 meters, says he missed competing and is relishing the opportunity.
My time is 26-25 in the 200. I got a gold medal in 2016, and I'm hoping to repeat that. The 100, pretty competitive field, but I'll try my best in the 3 races. I was saying to our coach, Mr. Raw Clark, we normally train for these games like 8 months. So I picture 8 months into 2 months. So basically he's saying we should be at least 80%. But I'm not too concerned about that because I have a lot of friends over there, and I spoke to quite a few of them, and they're facing the same challenges as us. So they're actually what they call cramming to be ready for the games. The times might be slower, but I'm sure it's going to be still competitive.
Well, the senior games started on Monday, and the track and field component gets going on the 11th.
In case you're wondering, the Bestows Santos Public Health Laboratory is experiencing a high volume of testing, and it will delay the publication of results from time to time. COVID-19 Public Advisor David Ellis told CBC News that the situation will, from time to time, not go to plan. He added that we must appreciate that the change is driven by the increase in numbers, and people should exercise patience and tolerance. Yesterday, the results came late into the evening. However, CBC understands that the practice is to release the figures within a 24-hour period. That's our news. Good night and be good.